can never get tired of that. Hey, welcome everybody to the Carlos Taco Show. We're your hosts, Miss Patty, me, and we got Elder Desiree. How you doing? Oh, we got hold on.
Good
Look.
to see you.
Hey, we got Gigi in
What's
the
up?
house. So what are we doing tonight, y'all?
Well, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So, what better subject matter experts than Miss Gigi, um, coming from NAMI, and we'll do some introductions shortly. There we go, Elder Desiree. Thank you
There
for
you go.
joining us. Thank you, Carlos.
You're welcome. Hey, there you go. Don't laugh at my name. I put that as a joke, and then it wouldn't let me change it. I was like, dang. Oh well.
It's okay. We know who you are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you to our audience that's watching us live. Thank you for watching us later. I would like to welcome our guests. We have Miss Gigi Crowder and Elder Desiree Rushing here to tell us about NAMI Contra Costa. We have a lot of topics to cover. Mental health is so important, and
Yeah, it is.
these leaders are leading the charge in helping communities across the nation, probably worldwide. But we're gonna learn. We're gonna learn. So the Mental Health Awareness Month. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm going to read something. That Mental Health Awareness Month was established in 1949 to increase awareness. Did you hear that? 1949.
Wow.
Yes, to increase awareness of the importance of mental health and wellness in Americans' lives, to celebrate recovery from mental illness. So, it's the month. It's the month of May, month of healing, but we always need healing. We're going to go through some introductions. Miss Gigi or Elder Desiree, would like to unmute and introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about yourselves and then about NAMI Contra Costa. So, NAMI, y'all, is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Welcome. We have another guest. Hello.
Elder.
Thank you, Geraldine, for joining us. We're
Yeah.
just doing introductions. We haven't started yet. Let's go ahead and start with Miss Gigi.
Thank you. Yes, the National Alliance of Mental Wellness is the oldest grassroots organization in the nation. Started with two moms who were not happy, actually disappointed in the broken healthcare system where they lived in Wisconsin, and started NAMI. Now it's 600 strong with affiliates across the nation. NAMI Contra Costa is the only one in this county, but in our neighboring county, Alameda, they actually have 4 NAMI affiliates. The primary mission of NAMI is to offer support, education, advocacy, and outreach. And I know, I lean toward advocacy part. And so that's been a big part of the mission that we have in Contra Costa County to make right some wrongs. Too often people live with mental illness are criminalized for living with what is a medical condition. So we've done a lot of advocacy work to improve outcomes for individuals, recognizing that 1 in 5 individuals are impacted by mental illness. Not that they personally live with it, but they have someone. We often have someone in our lives that live with a severe mental illness, and of course, that impacts our lives.
Thank you for that. Miss Elder Desiree, would you like to go next? A short introduction.
Yes, I'm Desi. I am one of the workers at NAMI. I started off with Cal Hope because of the COVID pandemic. And after that kind of subsided a little bit, I got calls just for people that were having problems just with everyday life. The ins and outs of just living behind the COVID pandemic. And then we have a program called Leave No One Behind, where we go out and feed the unsheltered, or as we like to say, the folks that live under the stars. I'm glad to be on. And if I knew it was you, Taco Man, I would.
What?
Thank you so much.
You changed your mind?
No, I love you. Bye.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for being here, Desi, Miss Desi. Welcome, Phil. We're just doing introductions. Welcome, Alonzo. We're doing introductions of who we are, and welcome to the show. Chaplain Geraldine, if you'd like to go next.
Good evening. My name is Chaplain Geraldine Bluford, and I work with NAMI Contra Costa. I am a certified peer support specialist. I am also the program coordinator for our innovation program. I started with NAMI because of a personal experience in my life, and receiving the help that I got from NAMI Contra Costa, it inspired me to help others in the community that are suffering with mental health challenges. I also support and advocate for social justice, families who's lost their loved ones to police brutality. But at this time, I'm excited about what we're doing at NAMI, working with all spiritual leaders and faith-based organizations. What we're doing is we're training and making the connection where we teach strategies of acceptance for those that are impacted by mental health challenges. So it's very exciting, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And we need a lot of healing, so it's sounding like a lot of connections are happening in order to make it happen. That's great. Welcome, Phil.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Phil Arnold. I am in order of my priorities in life. I'm married to the most wonderful woman in the world for be 53 years in June. We have 6 grandchildren. Love them dearly. 77 years old, so I'm a generational person. I work with the African American Uplift Program at NAMI Contra Costa, and also with the Veteran Outreach community. And I grew up under a reign of domestic terrorism with Emmett Till, Ruby Bridges being escorted to school. And there's a lot of other things that happened in my life that I bore witness to. And my grandmother, a praying woman, and my mother, a praying woman, would tell me in 1956, don't say anything or do anything stupid that'll get yourself lynched like Emmett Till. And they prayed fervently for me. So there was a hole, and my best friends were anxiety and depression as I went to school, particularly after the Brown versus Board of Education, where I had to go to the white school and was totally disrespected. So I'm here now to uplift our children. With a child, I will get down on one knee and talk to them face to face. But as the saying goes, when the winds blow strong, the roots grow deep.
Mm,
Wow.
that's beautiful. Thank you, Phil. You also have life knowledge, generational life experiences, and it's an honor to hear your story. I'm sorry that you went through that. To our audience, Emmett Till, if you don't know who Emmett Till is, he was a young man. There is a movie, there's a film, it's called Emmett Till. And right before his mother passed, but his mother was a big part of the whole production, and they made it happen. And everyone out there watching, go watch that. Go watch that so you can get just a small glimpse of the fear and terroristic upbringing that was endured because of the colors of your skin and our skins. It's so sad, and thank you again for being here. Alfonso, we have Alfonso also on the line. Thank you, Alfonso, for joining us.
Yes, thank you so very much, and hello to everyone. Good evening. My name is Alfonso Edwards. I am I'm also with NAMI. I just made 4 years. I joined NAMI right before COVID hit, and so I also assist Elder Desi with the No One Left Behind program. I'm a peer certified specialist as well, and I'm over and help run with Dr. Phil the Men of Wellness and Men of Faith, where we reach out to men. And so I'm just happy to be here. I'm thankful for being here. I love working with NAMI. because myself, I suffer from anxiety, PTSD, with the death of my mom, my brother, my grandmother. And so NAMI has helped me in the healing. And during COVID, we had a really, really, I'm not going to say good time, but it helped me mentally being out serving people, whether we used our church as a hub for the COVID test. We partnered with several churches in the Antioch area where we served food boxes during COVID. And so we're just here in the community and just, trying to make a difference one day at a time. So thank you. And Carlos, I see you. I know you can't see me, but I remember you.
I know. I remember your voice.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember. How you been?
I've been good, sir. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
That's amazing. Thank you, Alfonso, for sharing. Thank you for being here as well. And I agree. So something that's interesting is that was part of my healing also, advocacy, especially during COVID. We were locked up kind of, but there was atrocities happening, and that's when I activated. A little late, but I'm thankful to have crossed paths. Miss Gigi, thank you for coming through. I remember you would just, when we'd have actions and I started, just seeing people who's who, and you were there at many of our actions, and I felt protected. I didn't know who you were, but I felt protected. And then we see you at the board of supervisors out there. That's a whole other arena. So thank you for everything
Right.
that you do. We can go into the next topic. I would like to acknowledge, and I saw Miss Wanda Johnson, Miss Reverend Wanda Johnson, hop in and hop out. Maybe she may hop back in.
She let
Yes,
us know
trying to
that,
and she's having problems.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll
Technical
see her
difficulties.
shortly. She's been a guest before. Another amazing woman that's been through, and also, side note, there is the We For Our Children that's on Netflix. Audience out there, go watch it. Go watch it and get a glimpse of the true pain and trauma that the mothers of our communities have been enduring for far too long. I'd like to acknowledge the recent Angelo Quinto win, who was a Navy veteran suffering from PTSD. He was having a mental health episode. But this past Tuesday, our Antioch City Council voted 5-0 to settle with the family in $7.5 million. That's not enough money to ever bring back a family member, but it was a win for the family. And I know that NAMI Contra Costa was a big part of that. And if you'd like to tell us a bit about the journey, anyone?
well, I'll just share that prior to Angelo being killed by Antioch police officers, the former police chief had asked me to come in and do a training. We'd introduced new programming after the death of Miles Hall, so we had these law enforcement brochures. I went in, I did the training. Now, had they actually been focused on a real outcome versus a check the box, which I always say when people ask you to do something so they can, demonstrate to an insurance company that they've done a training, but without real meaning or intention. Because had they actually taken what I said, they could have easily, Angelo had an earlier difficult time and his mom had called law enforcement. So he'd had a 5150 in November. Had they used the skill set that I tried to give them, it's a good chance that his sister Bea would have got support from NAMI versus calling law enforcement. Angelo, at the time of his difficult day when he was killed, was having an anxiety attack, a panic attack. He wouldn't let go of his mom. So it was, definitely difficult to hear that had happened and that Antioch Police Department had essentially used me and were not intentional about using any of the resources that I have. So I kind of took it personally. It's at that first press conference, when I started hearing the details that he'd had a previous, then of course I was angered. And then contrary to what many people know, this happened in December. Most of us didn't find out about it until February. So there was a cover up by the police department, as was shared yesterday by the mayor when he said at the press conference that he found out the night. Yeah, he found out when all of us found out because the police department was treating it like it was no big deal. But of course, we know it was a big deal that they killed a man and tried to use time to cover it up.
Absolutely. And it's sad. A lot of veterans, I want to say PTSD has been a thing for a long time, but it's not just veterans, it's everybody. Post traumatic stress disorder applies to anyone that's experienced something traumatic in their life. It's not just a veteran thing. So,
It's also not post. So more and more, I'm moving away from using that terminology of post-traumatic stress disorder. If it's reoccurring, if it's continual, because of some people being put in situations daily that traumatize them, then we're not just looking at the post. We're looking at continual. And if you're a resident of Antioch, if you see law enforcement and you know the history that they've carried with the racialized text messages, then you're going to have a continual stressor, continual trauma, just the sight of a uniform here in this city, because you don't know several of the officers who were receiving text messages were put back on the force. So that means that we don't know which, is responsible or which carry harsh feelings toward community members. So that's,
absolutely.
you know,
And what Ms. Gigi is saying here, there have been victims that are in silence, but there's also victims and community members that have expressed this, that it's re-traumatizing to see this. And I've recommended, hey, y'all should rebrand and do away with the shield and make it maybe a community resource officer. If they don't like it because it's not their blue shield, bye. That's my opinion. But what can we do but continue to talk about it? So thank you for sharing that. Now, something that did come out of the this unfortunate event, y'all. So for our community to know, Angelo Quinto went to the Navy. He tried for it. It didn't work out. But he's still a veteran. He's still a veteran in my eyes. When we went to the event that morning, I went to my primary care health at the VA in Martinez, and someone was out there selling hats. And I was like, okay, I need to get Angelo his hat. So I went and got him a Navy veteran hat and gave it to his sister. But from that, there was a crisis response team that was established. So there was this crisis response team in honor of Angelo Quinto. Can you tell us a little bit of that?
well, I'm not going to say I have a whole lot of
Okay.
positive about the Angelo Quinto Mobile Crisis Response Team, because when I went to the ribbon cutting and I saw the van, and I'm also very shocked that I don't see the van. Law enforcement, typically 33% of their calls are in response to a person having a psychiatric challenge. Used to be domestic violence, but it's neck and neck now with individuals having a difficult time. So I would expect to see that van. Personally, when I go and I see the hiring pattern of muscle and dark muscle over compassion and care and a group of people who's able to de-escalate through conversation, then it's stereotypical, and it put a bad taste in my mouth, because I saw a couple of people I work out at In Shape Gym with, and they don't necessarily carry the skill set needed to decompensate, to de-escalate. So what we did is the group that got it sadly thought of people who live with mental illness and thought of violence, and so hired muscle versus hired compassion. And then they hired all African Americans, further pushing the stereotype. When you go into hospital settings and psych emergency services, you see a lot of African American men and in the role of orderlies and psych techs, because they feel like we need muscle for that part. But we also have educated African American men and Latinx men who carry the skill set to perform in a manner consistent with producing greater outcomes, because they're able to talk to the individual. And having experienced and have the sad statistics of having 4 individuals on my staff, because we uplift lived experience. Dr. I always call her doctor because she probably have earned it now. Reverend Wanda Johnson, the mom of Oscar Grant, is on our staff. She's running our older adult program. Ton Hall was on our staff. Her son Miles was killed in Walnut Creek. We also have Bea, who's, of course, the sister of Angelo Quinto, and Geraldine son was killed by Oakland PD at just 18 years old. So, because we have lived experience, we want to be able to have individuals on staff who can say, I have been through that before. Personally, knock on wood, I would never want to be able to say that, right? That's not a club anyone wants to join. And then, of course, we work with several other family members who have loved ones who have been killed by law enforcement. Tyrell Wilson's mom, held that family's hand through their painful journey, and Vladimir Abaleta. What did all of these young men have in common? Under the age of 35, several of them live with mental illnesses, and so should have been treated with compassion and care, since mental illness is a medical condition. And then sadly, Oscar, as John Burris made reference to, set the bar for us doing things differently. But it's still pretty unfortunate that we have all these individuals who are killed by those hired to protect and serve.
Absolutely. I remember when they did the unveiling, and it was a slap in the face to see an officer in his civilian clothes that I knew had brutalized Miss Catherine Wade's son, and he came from San Francisco after killing a homeless man. And there he was, and I had a conversation with him, and he leaned into me and said, "I'm not your enemy." And when he said that, I was taken aback, and there was luckily an ally. She was there, and she stepped in just to be present for that conversation. But when he said that to me, I felt threatened. But there he is, still on our force. It's unfortunate. I would like to welcome Miss LaTanya. I saw you join in, and Miss Reverend Wanda Johnson. Thank you again for joining our show. You've been here before. Thank you. Would you like to do a small introduction, Miss LaTanya?
Good evening, everyone. I am LaTanya Thompson. I'm part of the NAMI board. I've also done a lot of work as far as mental health. I have my own personal lived experience. I'm also on the board for Contra Costa AB 109 for those who have been incarcerated. And so I'm someone who knows that there's a need and that we are the most harmed. And so instead of complaining about it, I'm involved in the community to be the solution, to educate and to bring awareness around it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Miss Wanda, tell us, I watched your documentary this weekend. Let our audience know.
Oh, thank you so much for watching it. I am Wanda Johnson. I'm the mother of Oscar Grant, and it's good to be on this session today. I currently have a documentary out, which is called For Our Children. You could check it out on Netflix. I am part of NAMI. I am an older adult support. I'm part of the older adult support group, where we work with older adults who are suffering maybe depression or isolation. We try to help them to come up with strategies so they're not feeling depressed or feeling isolated. As we get older, we oftentimes become empty nesters, and our children go and live their own lives, and we find ourselves by ourselves at times. And so because of that, we become depressed, and we can become isolated. And so what we want to do is be able to bridge that gap and let the older adults know that we are there supporting them and that their family loves them, and we try to reunite them in whatever way that we can. So again, I'm glad to be on the session today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us, and for taking the time. Next question is, what does Contra Costa need? We need to heal. Okay, audience, our county, our nation needs to heal. What do we need, Miss Gigi?
Well, I mean, one of the things that reminded us that structural institutional racism exists is after the incident with law enforcement in both Antioch and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, some lately has been getting squeaking away with their hands being dirty, but we recognize how important it is for us to acknowledge the fact that those text messages open up deep, dark wounds. Emmett Till was mentioned this earlier. For me, I don't as much relate to that as I do Oscar Grant. One of the things that really I adore Reverend Wanda Johnson about is that early on, unlike many, she recognized the trauma experienced by people who just heard about her son being killed. So we heard about it. I've known several people in this city of Antioch who were harmed by police long before the racialized text messages came out. So a healing was necessary. I went to county departments, even though we're at a time where it was hard to hire staffing. So I knew that these agencies had money in their budgets. We couldn't find any agency willing to give up the resources so that we could start the healing process, especially with our youth. Preventative approaches allow you to look at who needs the work done the most. And so you look at root causes. So we were trying to prevent youth from carrying the kind of pain that would make them feel like, oh, wow, they don't care. So why should I? That was the healing that I thought was most paramount, that we position ourselves to share with the youth, you do matter, and here's some opportunity for us to come together, talk about the pain, but then move from it. You can't be defined by your pain. You're not the worst thing that ever happened to you. And here are these opportunities for you to, put the harmful, hateful messaging of the cops behind you, and then stand in your truth as being a queen, a king, etc. And so that healing happened in a way that was forced because we weren't able to get any funding. So we partnered with some local faith communities and did some of the work there, but there's still this gapping open wound that's there, not just for African Americans, but for BIPOC people in general. It's there. Antioch has become a mega, make Antioch great again.
I remember that.
And because we're that type of city, we need to, not much different from Trump. We need to put our finances and stop funding law enforcement. I was at a recent NAACP meeting and they asked the question of the chief, some questions, and I couldn't believe it. There was African Americans there saying, well, why don't you come to the Juneteenth? And I was like, what the hell would we want to have law enforcement at that type of a celebration? So as a people, we sometimes don't understand how triggering it is to have visuals. And sometimes people have been harmed so much, they don't recognize that they're harming themselves by forgiving too quickly. That you can harm yourself when you put yourself in a position where you are, forcing away natural feelings. I remember when there was the killing of the African Americans in a church, when the white kid came in there, who they then later took to get some fast food before he went to jail. That quickly, the media quickly said right away, oh, and the people were so forgiving. I was like, what the heck? Rigor mortis hasn't set in and you're forcing forgiveness down our throat. That's what winds up happening, that causes individuals not to address the trauma. And then it's going to bubble up later and usually is self-destructive with self-medicating, through alcohol and other illicit drugs. And so that's the conversations we need to have. So you're 100% correct. We definitely need healing. And it's just been a mask put over it, and we haven't really done any of the real healing. So one of the things we tried for, as you know, at the Board of Soup was to get the funding needed for the African American Holistic Wellness Hub, because you can't depend on other people to give you funding to do it, and they do it. There's too many people who operate in the missionary approach, meaning they think they know how you should heal better than you personally yourself, and using your community traditional defined practices. So there's still a great need. I know there's need for healing just because of how difficult yesterday was, right? To be be back in that space where Angelo was killed, to hear his mom cry. And, like you said earlier, 7.5 million sounds like a lot of money. I'll keep it real. The big winners are always the attorneys when it comes to that, because it was not their kids. They take 40% plus. And I have a deep respect for John Burris, because he does, highlight it. He spoke about how Oscar Grant's case changed things, and it did, but at the end of the day, the pain that a mom would still feel, as we heard Cassandra sobbing. Most of the families that I work with, several times, John has had to call and ask me, can you call this person and tell them to cash the check?
Yes, it's that last step.
Consequential. Yes. They would much rather have their loved one back.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine that step of, okay, there it is. It's a harsh reality of that exchange, that there is no higher value than a lost loved one. Oh my goodness. And I saw we have another guest, Miss Audrey. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself? It's okay, we'll come back. Thank you for being here. Part of the NAMI team. So we went over some challenges. Tell me about the challenges, because I've seen you in action at these Board of Supervisors meetings advocating for an African American holistic wellness hub, and we need that. I'm dying to see that, and that's the least the county can do, is create this safe space for African Americans that have endured so much, because there is a MAGA existence. And during their, I don't know if y'all know, but we have an archive of folks that are hardcore, back the blue, and that is what they would say. They would say, make Antioch great again. And then the former police union president, Yellow, would say things like, the police support Trump. This is exactly what you're saying. I've seen it with my eyes, so you are on it. But what challenges are there in these Board of Supervisors meetings? So to our audience, we have our school board councils, we have our city council meetings, and then we have the county that oversees a lot of funding. And what I'm learning is that not a lot of people attend these meetings, but Ms. Gigi's up in there, like literally throwing down for the community and lifting African American needs. So what challenges have you experienced, if any?
There's a lack of respect for African Americans. I guess it was in 2019 when the Board of Supervisors had a proclamation and declared that racism was a public health crisis. And then at the very next meeting, in their funding decisions and everything that they do, it would just work. They proved that it was just words on a piece of paper. So for me and for our community members who get it, and I'm going to say who get it, we have to be watching policy and culture, and culture trumps policy. So I've been on the racial justice oversight body for longer than I needed to be there, to be honest with you, because I don't want to waste my time on anything that is just a check the box and you just show up. But sometimes I'll just go to stuff because I'm going to say the things that need to be said when nobody else will say them. I don't believe in biting my tongue and tasting my own blood. But we got the public defender, Allen, McDonald, who, does as much as any white American person in a place of privilege can do to try and push the needle forward. But the reality is, in every system, there is inherent racism, not just toward African Americans, but I believe if you work with the community, that if you look at statistics and demographic, that's most harmed. And the reason I say most harmed is because we make up less than 9% of the population. It's like 8.6, but we show up in the criminal justice, our criminal punishment system at an alarming rate, like 42, 45. And then, of course, we know that, the Latinx community is right there, too, in the school systems and other places where harm is. Once they deplete it and, bite and chew up Black, then they go after Latinx. And the approach that I'm trying to take, and it's God assigned, is start with the community most harm that's been demonstrated with the poor school grades, with the highest death through COVID was African Americans. There was an acknowledgement at the Board of Supervisors that they closed the health equity gap for COVID for all but the African American community.
Mhm.
Which would suggest historically, if you're from the public health environment and you look at social determinants of health, then you would say, wow, well, next time there's a pandemic, we probably should have African Americans be prioritized to get the vaccinations.
Mm.
Now, that's what makes sense, right? Just like older adults have a high risk. Well, it's been proven African Americans do. So let's also prioritize them. That would never happen because there's not a value put on the life of African Americans. So when you know that you're working against that, you have to show up, be an advocate, and say, hey, these are our demands. I also focus on the AAPI community because I'm in the mental health space, and you look at Latimer and Angelo were from the Filipino community, and they were both killed by law enforcement. There's little value put on the life of them, and this county neglects the AAPI community in the area of mental health. There's no way possible with Alameda County having 6 threshold languages, with San Joaquin having 4 or 5, with Solano having that we would only be a 2-county threshold language. So the conversation is, how do you know if you don't even print any of the material in anything other than Spanish and English? Then you know it, but it's impossible for us to be that. So that's how archaic and behind Contra Costa County is. I was working in Alameda County pushing limits, and of course they kicked me out. It took my job away. Thank you for that. But you know when you start making waves, but you have to do it without risk. You have to do it knowing there's going to be consequences, but you're willing to take the risk. I'll say it that way. And so for us, you know, I was asked tonight at the Family Justice Center, one of the people at my table asked me, what am I focused on now? This is not just about working for one community. When people call us at NAMI, I don't say, oh, what color are you? I can only help you if you're this or that. No, we want to help everyone. And AAPI is neglected in such a way, and they're a large and growing population. It's shameful that they can't even find a place to come to the Board of Supervisors and voice their concerns because they don't have the language capacity to have translator there for them. And Richmond is the most diverse city in the nation, not in the state, in the nation.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it was last year. I could, look at that and see if it holds true. I think it probably is. So many people have moved from Alameda County and other places to come to a more affordable. And like I said, in Solano County, Tagalog is definitely one of the languages because there's a large Filipino community. So the fact that we had 2 Filipino young men, brutally killed. And then I hear the news that the officer who went to jail made history in this county for being the first convicted officer, 6 years, Officer Hall, may be getting out of jail in next year. It pains me,
Oh, let me know about that one. We'll be there. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. And what you're saying is facts, straight facts to our community out there. If you haven't read the text messages about how they kill and beat Black and brown folks, there was one officer that said, oh, I'm going to quote, the Blacks don't need to worry. We kill more Hispanics than anything. And so it's just disgusting that they have their own statistics in their mind, but that's the sad reality. It is what it is, and it's not okay because they're benefiting off of our tax dollars while violating civil rights. And they've been doing this for too long because we went from plantations to prisons because the prison system is an exact replica of continuing to keep people oppressed and in the system because they are making money. The state is making money. They're privatizing these prisons, and it's wrong. So we need to stand up and call out against that. Okay, next question. How can the community be involved as with NAMI in mental health? Is there volunteer opportunities?
Well,
Web
let me
Instagram?
start by saying NAMI can be its own plantation.
Mm.
You know, NAMI traditionally is older white Americans who some carry the "let's make NAMI great again" philosophy, but God is having the kind of sense of humor He has positioned me to get more done at NAMI than I could have done when I was in Alameda County with the assignment to make behavioral health services fair and equitable. So now, 6 years later, the board members are looking up and saying, wait a minute, what have we done, and hiring her, but it's too late now. The train has left the track. So we're advancing efforts around Latinx minds mattering, Black minds mattering, and AAPI minds mattering too. So we're not going backwards, we're going forward. And NAMI allows for opportunities for us to look at culturally responsive ways to improve health outcomes. So if you look at where Latinx community members get their services done, are we seeing any improvement? And the answer becomes no. I know one program, La Concordia, Dr. Manuel Fernandez, who's doing it in Concord in a way that really is inherent to true healing because he's pulling from his cultural roots to do it. Mm-hmm. That is what he's doing. But generally, the programs that speak Spanish are still doing it in a manner consistent when the one size fit all. So the practices that are being used are not indigenous practices. They're they build toward Medi-Cal. And the same, if we were to have robust program for AAPI, they would still have to fit into a model that's specific for building Medi-Cal and the way the Western approach. So they're not very healing. And so that's why funding for the African American Holistic Wellness Hub is supposed to position us for healing in a way consistent with producing the best outcome, looking at opportunities like what Geraldine spoke of earlier, the mental health friendly communities model trains faith leaders on how to become partners in healing. That's a training that I developed, over 10 years ago in Alameda County. That's probably why I'm not there anymore, because it was working. When everything started working for community members, then all of a sudden it goes away because white America doesn't want to lose us as a product. Mm-hmm. So, even in our school systems, there's always going to be on any campus, the bulk of the kids who are in IEP are going to be African American and Latinx students. When I was working in Alameda County, African Americans started taking their children out and putting them in charter schools, or they moved out of the area because gentrification. Then all of a sudden, I saw the numbers for Hispanic boys in particular creeping up in those special ed classes. And I was like, oh yeah, they have to go find a new product. And it's horrible. It should never be that way. So community members have to see it. We have to talk about it, and we have to say, hell no, we're not going for this. We love our kids just like you love yours. And when we see you starting to attack our kids, our grandmothers, our aunties, our uncles, we're calling foul on it. And I sit on the Measure-X CAB, which is the health and sales tax, which funded this. And I know who voted for the hub and who didn't. I also know who tried and push down my throat Western approaches to solving problems that wind up being missionary. And if you know anything about the missionary approach, that's why we had so many Native Americans die from illnesses. That's why, other indigenous countries and people, that's why
still suffering from their trauma,
suffering from the intrusion of white people, Caucasoid people coming and saying, we're going to teach you a better way to do it. So, I work very closely with cultural brokers from the Native American community, and we know the harm that's been done. And I love that they have been able to go to the state and say, you can't adopt our kids, only other Native Americans can. Or that they're set aside, tribal, if you look at grant opportunities, there's a set aside for tribals. African Americans haven't made that kind of progress yet. What we hear often is there will be some reparations, but we have to remember all of the progress that was made was made under Governor Newsom and his desire to have the Black vote. He can't be governor forever. So the whole thing with reparations, trust and believe it will die a slow death.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
it will. Because by now, first of all, let's look at the fact that whenever they want to give money to a community of color, they start with, let's study the problem. That's what's happening with the African American Holistic Wellness Hub. Let's
Oh
do
my
a
God.
feasibility study.
I would like to see the list, Miss Gigi. I want to see the list of who did not support the African American Holistic Wellness.
Well, actually, there was a backroom deal.
Oh,
So it was voted in unanimously.
okay.
But if you really look at the recommendations made by the Measure X cab and some of the stuff that came out, it was, we'll give you this if you give you that. And it was too unpopular not to say you voted for it. But remember, there was an allocation. There's a difference between getting funds out and money being allocated. That's like a promise. We've been promised a lot of things and never got it. So even with the $1 million that was promised in the last cycle, by the time it went back to the Equity Committee with Supervisor Joya and Federal Glover, that 1 million that was supposed to be used urgently to start a healing process in East County, namely Antioch, is now 500,000 over two a piece over the next two. So it's total $1 million, but 500 and 500, and it remembers for the whole county, so that advocacy for $1 million just to address the trauma because of the police has now become split over 2 years, and not just for East County.
Wow. Okay. So they cut it up. It's cut up, and what was
And
promised.
not a penny has gone out.
Oh my gosh.
But the Measure X cab said it's an urgent need, and got to get it out right away, and it hasn't happened.
To our community, reparations has been a promise for over a century, longer, and it was on paper where they would give 40 acres and a mule to all descendants of slavery. They never got it, nothing to this day. And I've attended reparations, the meetings that they held in Oakland as part of my studies, and I firmly believe in reparations. And if they're not going to call it that, they better fund these spaces. They need to give it back. Guaranteed income. There's all kinds of ways that it can be. I mean, even then, there's no amount of money to repay the trauma inflicted on the African American community.
Whatever it is, I'll take it.
Look, if they go to get the jewels and all of the precious stones that were African and take them out of the museums, give them back to the people. That's another way they could do it.
Exactly. You're right.
Now, one of my last questions. We have about 15 minutes left. Maybe we can go around in a circle of our NAMI leaders here and tell our community how can one tip to cope with mental health for this Mental Health Awareness Month. Who can go? Who would like to go first? Are they all in order? So if we start with Elder Desiree on the top right.
You just have to remind them to keep it brief.
Okay, we'll do one positive thing that that you could tell our community how to cope with mental health. It could be anything. It could be a service, a resource, a technique.
Thank you so much. We have we have several support groups, but one is one that I lead for healing and prayer, coming together with other like-minded people that are going through the same loss or situation that you're going to. Support is always a good avenue. It's every second Friday, and I can get Carlos the link. It's every second Friday at 6:30. So
thank you so much for sharing that. Carlos, you got that? She's going to send you the link and we'll share it on our Facebook and our Instas. Thank you so much for sharing that. Miss Chaplain Geraldine, if you could share.
Thank you, Miss Patty. One of the things that I love about working with NAMI is they encourage religious affiliation and the connection between the faith community and the healing part that goes along with that really helps us to establish trust with someone who is going through a mental health challenge. We can also share our personal experience. Again, that establishes the trust. And so the main thing is that we bring the two communities together to become a mental health friendly community by establishing trust with the faith-based community and those that are suffering from mental health issues. So I think that that's really important, and we encourage those to reach out to the leaders in the spiritual world or faith communities, that because that just establishes that strong connection, gives them hope, and that's very important.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Alfonso, is there something that you could share with our community? We don't hear any sound. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. One thing that Elder Gigi always preaches is self-care. I believe self-care is one of the main ingredients to restore your mental health, something that you like to do, people you like to be with. I have several things that I like to do. I like to cook and watch people eat and just hang out with family. I like to go fishing. I like playing basketball. I like coaching. All those things that I enjoy help with my mental health. But one thing that is really self-care, just kind of getting away from everything and just taking care of yourself. So I would really recommend that.
Beautiful. That's great advice. Thank you. Miss Latanya.
I would say a great resource for someone that is supporting a family member with a mental illness or health is to take the family to family class so that you can learn what mental illness is, how to support them, how to be an advocate, how to be a voice, and the rights that your family member have. The more awareness you have around it, the easier it is to support them and to let them know that they're not alone, as well as to have other people who can support you in the process because they're also supporting a family member.
Absolutely. Phil, would you like to fill in? I think we didn't get you connected yet.
Yes, I'm driving, so now I've got my 16-year-old granddaughter in the car with me, taking her back from dance lessons. But one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand is that you don't have to live up to other people's expectations for you. And as I was growing up, nor did I have to live down to other people's expectations for me. Live up to your own expectations, set your own path, do the work. And NAMI allows people to have freedom from those things. And I have a picture, as I said, of Ruby Bridges on my bedroom wall as a reminder that she was escorted by marshals. What 6-year-old little girl has to go to school with marshals? And it's the journey. Enjoy the journey. And I'm a mama's boy, and my mama always told me you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. So I want to make a contribution. I want to be where I can to talk to our kids, because they're our nation's most precious natural resource. And hopefully they will look at me and say, he knows a little something, something.
Absolutely. Some words from the wise. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, and safe travels to your next destination. Miss Audrey, any thoughts? Okay. All right, Miss Reverend Wanda Johnson. Community out there, audience, there is a book that Miss Wanda Johnson authored recently, and it's a form of healing, the grieving process. Miss Wanda Johnson, what would you recommend for our audience? What technique?
So I think for being a part of NAMI, one of the programs is No One Left Behind. I think it's important that we continue to wrap our arms around those who are older than us. Again, we often forget and they become depressed and they become feeling isolated. And so, in order to help them not feel that way, is for us, the younger generation, to uh, take them out on a walk or take them out for a drive. Spend that time with them, watch a movie with them, and encourage them as they transition from being in their mids to their older ages. And it requires, us to really take care of our communities when we take care of the older adults. And so I want to encourage us, I was around some people even today and I felt, wow, I'm getting so old, right? But I want to encourage us that, we have our ancestors that we can look up to that are here. And also, there's a scripture that talks about a great cloud of witnesses, those that have already gone before us. Pull from them what you need when you need strength. So, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Miss Gigi, Executive Director of NAMI Contra Costa. What can our community do to heal and cope with mental health?
Well, I think that individuals have to really do a lot of taking inventory of where they're at, being realistic about where we are, and then not allowing themselves to hold it in, but to actually vent outward versus holding it in. So for me, self-care is being honest about what you see. We do have a lot of resources at NAMI specific to meeting the needs of cultural communities. We know that for the group that actually sustained through COVID because of social ties was African American women. They found a way to come together. Our country gave out false information around social distancing when they should have said physical distancing, but keep as social as possible, meaning use FaceTime, use Zoom and all of that, because connection is really important. And so I think when you connect with other people, that a slogan we use, "You are not alone," really supports individuals toward wellness. And I'll just say, we don't focus on religion. We erase that word and we talk about spirituality and faith. Religion has hurt people. Spirituality and faith is a coming together and lifting up. And so that's really important for us as well. We can't shy away from a proven tool, meaning a reliance on our higher power or God, I'll say it. And many of us who are in these spaces have been told we can't focus on that because they know it works.
Mm-hmm.
Know who your enemy is and how they will attack you, and then hold on to what you know to be truthful.
No, that's beautiful. Something I want to, folks don't know, energy and faith and prayer, and it's very real. And it's proven that, folks, if there's a room of people, our brains will still connect to each other. There's waves, there's the energy, but that's a proven thing. Carlos, what would you tell people and how you cope with mental health? And
Whew.
sorry to put you on the spot.
Nah, no, it's this is a yeah. I don't talk about it a lot, but I've been suffering from anxiety for 29 years now. So there's numerous ways of dealing with it. Some people prefer medication. There's therapy. There's, oh my God, I think I've tried everything. The tapping, you guys heard about that? Breathing, grounding. So exercise. That's one that I got. Like my brother was telling me, because he's a combat vet. So yeah, exercise helps out a lot. The endorphins kick in and just beats the heck out of that anxiety. That's what he's trying to get me to do, but I'm like, I'm still working on that. I always tell him baby steps. And then I can't
You
help
should
it.
listen to your brother.
Hey, and then I can't help. There's an IHOP next to my gym, so I'm like, sorry, but I just deal with it. Having someone to call and just be like, hey, the signs of anxiety after 29 years, you pretty much know what they are now. You pretty much know it's not a heart attack, even though the signs are the same. But you end up you calm down and all that. But it does help to have somebody to talk to, or like an organization to go to, support group, all that. I'm for all that, and just hey, anybody out there watching, if you need somebody, man, hit me up. So I'm usually up most of the night anyway. So, but man, yeah.
Solid. No,
I gave up too many things there. My bad.
No, you're good. That was great. All of these thoughts of ways to cope. For me, it's been advocacy. I'm still in a little state of depression coming out of a domestic violence situation and then military, sexual harassment trauma, but I'm dealing with it. And part of it is creating community and conversations and talking about it and normalizing our mental health, because we go through different walks of life, but we're all human. We all have space and time that we should heal. And we can do it together. So with that, thank you all for being on our show tonight and joining the conversation and normalizing mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. Carlos, I also want to give a shout out to our host here. It's his birthday this weekend. So happy birthday.
Thank you. I know Saturday will be my 51st, 51.
Young.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, see, I get that. It's always you're young. You're so young now. But to your kids now, that's a different story. Now, they call me old man, and yeah, Dad, you're old now. It's like, wow. But I receive that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elder.
Well, thank you all again. We'll be in touch online. You're welcome to, if there's any programs that we would like to uplift every Thursday at 8 p.m., just reach out and we'll be happy to talk about it. Taco about it.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, Miss Patty, for having us.
Right.
Carlos.
Yay. Thank you guys for being on the show. It wouldn't be a show without y'all. You guys did send me a flyer, and it won't be on here. And I'm like, it's not Apple, so I couldn't airdrop it real quick and put it on the show, but I'm gonna figure out how to do it.
Send it to me too, and I'll put it on my
and we'll put it on the Carlos Tacos page on Facebook as well. So
knowledge is power.
That's right, y'all. Thank you all for tuning in out there. If you haven't subscribed yet to the show, make sure you subscribe. You can show your support by doing that. Also like this page and like the show. Give me a thumbs up. And we're here every Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we'll tune in next time to see who's on the show. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for being on the show, and thank you all for watching. With that, I'd like to say good night and God bless, and we'll see you soon.
God bless.
Good night, everyone.